at this pre-roll.
Why does that sound gross?
I don't know. I'm just saying. None of our patrons got any of the pre-roll.
Anybody want some pre-roll?
Some pre-roll.
Pre-roll. Starship Troopers.
Does anybody even watch these videos? Can anyone even hear us? The YouTube views are pretty good. I think we get like 15 to 30 like per
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
I like our YouTube channel because we get all these like really warm, nice comments for Andrew's School of Rock video essay.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always like, I'm a teacher and this inspired me. And like, like I was going to jump off a bridge and then I watched this video and I'm not going to now. And then like on my videos, it's always the Beethoven one. And they're like, he called it a song. It's not a song. It's a piece of music. And so it's like, Andrews, it's like, thank you for inspiring me. And for mine, it's like, go and kill yourself because you didn't call the music correctly. It's really inspiring.
They're like, poo-poo on you, sir.
Yeah, they just like spit acid in my face, and then they like, I'm not the one who did the video essay on Scarlett Johansson, which in retrospect is questionable.
Yeah, that's true.
Whoa, didn't see that coming. That didn't age well.
Oh, yeah.
Is Andrew canceled? I don't know.
I think
welcome
we
to
could make
Cinematary.
if we really wanted to.
No.
I always wish I could be canceled. That'd be nice. Be so quiet. Gets just enjoy life. Anyway, let's do the podcast.
That's a good idea.
All right.
What's the order?
I'm just gonna toss it over, and you guys can say whatever order you want.
Am I first?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm last.
Go first.
Because of feminism.
I'm first. You have to say and Cam. And Cam.
Mm.
And Cam. Okay, we're ready.
Okay. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 379 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Jessica Carr.
And Kim Watson.
Oh, I fucked my thing up.
No. All right, I'm closing out our thing. No.
You did the and right, though. Good for you, Cam.
Good job,
Thanks.
buddy.
That was a test one, just to kind of see if he had the, the juice.
He had the juice, the chops, the pork chops.
You got the chops, the podcast.
You got the pod chops.
Yeah, this is a real tough business here. Pod chops.
Pod chopping. All right, take 2.
In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 379 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Jessica Carr
and Kim Watson.
And in today's episode, we'll be talking about movies that we watched this week in part 1. And in part 2, we will be wrapping up our real quick Patreon pick series with the person who picked the movie, Cam. Thanks. You're really taking it another step. Some of our patrons, they just cast off stuff to make us watch and sometimes suffer through. But you showed up for it. So congratulations. We're going to be talking about 1997's Starship Troopers. Which I'll be honest.
That's right. We're going to talk about some bugs.
We talk about bugs. Real quickly, though, head over to cinematary.com. We got a new review going up on Monday. We also got reviews of The French Dispatch, Labyrinth of Cinema, and Cry Macho. So check it out. And then at the end of the episode, we'll be revealing our next series, which is going to be very Christmassy in a way. Christ.
it's gonna be a holy time for all of us.
A holy series. But that you gotta wait till the end, you know. You gotta listen to all the minutes. Or just skip to the end. I don't care. All right, well, let's go ahead and talk about movies that we saw this week. I can lead us off. I can lead us. This is a relatively new release. So I caught up with the latest. It's the latest Marvel. Yeah, it's the latest Marvel.
It isn't, unfortunately.
Is there another one that came? Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
the gay guy doing Hiroshima. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
one.
Eternals, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I
No,
was like, wait, what?
wait, what? What happened? So one of the Marvel movies from this year, Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, because this hero accessorizes. What's this about? So Shang-Chi.
No.
Shang-Chi. I'll just be honest. I didn't dislike it. I was relatively bored the entire time. So Shang-Chi, he's like, I fill in some of the lore for, so like
He's the
his
son
dad's
of
Tony
what's
Leung's
his
character, which
yeah.
is fantastic.
The Mandarin, that's right.
Yeah, and
He
he's
is
like,
the son, yeah, so he's the son of the Mandarin,
yeah.
and his dad has the 10 rings, which gives him ultimate power, and also he doesn't age like at all. Also played by Tony Leung, who looks
also doesn't
amazing
age.
and also doesn't age. So it's perfect casting on their part. But Shang-Chi like lives with his dad, like grows up with his dad and his sister and his mom. And then his dad is kind of like a crime overlord guy who wants to wield like ultimate power and take over all of these other
And
places.
it's a Disney product, so his mom dies because that's the only
Yeah.
way we can progress people in storytelling.
Mom dies, and then he pretty much like his dad sends him on a mission to go assassinate someone, and then he escapes and runs away and goes and somehow ends up in New York City, and Aquafina is like his best friend. And so he just like goes and lives his life, and she doesn't know about his past or who he is, and then his past comes to find him, and he has to go get his dad, go find his dad, defeat his dad, whatever.
Yeah, it's a real it's a real cats in the cradle situation going on. Yeah. So and then Ben Kingsley shows up for a little while. You know, it's a whole time. I'll give it this. Other than that part, it didn't until the very very end. It wasn't like too many like little Marvel characters popping up in the background, like, oh hey look, it's Iron Man. You know, it didn't have that shit. It did have a very tired looking Mark Ruffalo in the end of the movie in one of the end credit scenes. He looked like he was just like
Yeah, they all kind of looked like
I got
super
20,
tired.
man. I got 20
They
minutes,
all
man.
just kind of showed up and were like, "Yeah, we got paid to be here, so that's fine."
But yeah, so Shang-Chi is played by what is it,
Simu
Simu,
Mm-hmm.
who is a relatively new actor. He's I think he's most known because he was in Kim's Convenience, the sitcom. But yeah, you mentioned we got Aquafina, Michelle Yao is in this. I don't know, like, is this the worst Marvel movie? No, it's Tony Leung is super hot and he's super fun and he does things with his little arm ringy things that look like he's Sonic the Hedgehog, and like, you know, good for him that he got a nice payday. But was I bored? Yes. Did I think that you could go over to like Tubi or Criterion Channel and watch a Jackie Chan movie and get what this is doing in a better format? Yes. Did I make that comment during the bus fight sequence when like he's hanging out of the bus and I'm like, this is a reference to Police Story, and it was done better in Police Story? Yes. But I don't know. I'd rather watch. I don't know. I'd rather watch this than whatever that Brie Larson one was. The military porn
Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I'd rather watch this one. I don't know. It just kind of. It was more. It had nothing to do with like the story. It's just more. I don't. There wasn't much. It didn't really feel like it had much personality. You know, it just kind. It felt very flat. And that's not the fault of like any of the actors or anything. They all seem fine. Aquafina kind of annoys me. I'll be honest, but that's whatever. But there just didn't seem to be much personality like in like the directing and like the way that they tried to kind of frame these action sequences to be kind of Jackie Chan, wuxia, kung fu esque, and like it was admirable, but it also was just like I don't know, this is the same thing with shoot, what was the other with Mulan? Like it's like a movie that wants to be a Zhang Yimou movie. Just hire Zhang Yimou. Like why are you? I don't know. Whatever. So that's my feelings about Shang-Chi. It just confused me. It just was just like it was trying to be like 7 different other movies that I'm like you could probably just go hire those people that make that movie, but you won't. But I know that you're much kinder to this movie than I was.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it more than you. I definitely think it has its problems, but I think that for me it's more of a representation thing. Like it's like having an Asian American superhero is nice, and even if it is not the perfect Marvel movie, it's still a movie that represents like someone who wasn't represented before. So like if a little Asian American kid like gets to have their superhero that they relate to, like I think that that's nice, and that's better than nothing. Better than just like popping out some other kind of generic movie. And like, do I think that people should just go watch a wuxia movie? Sure. And do those movies do it better than this movie did? Yes, of course. But if you are like exposing a broader audience, which Marvel movies do, to that like type of style, and it exposes someone to it, and then they seek out like a wuxia movie or martial arts movie after that, then I think that it has more benefit than it does like hurting anything.
I hear that, but like that's like I don't know. That's like that's like getting like a steak at like Kroger and being like, well, now you've tried like getting a filet mignon at Kroger and going, here's my filet mignon. I'm exposed to filet mignon. And then you go to like a 5-star Michelin restaurant and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what filet mignon tastes like. So it's like, did you get pushed to that because of the Kroger filet mignon? Probably not. But I mean, I guess in theory that's the reason why they do that. I don't really buy that.
Yeah, I mean, I still enjoyed all of the like fight sequences and all. I didn't think that it was like a discount version of it the way that you are. So
It's
I'm
better
not.
than It was better than other Marvel fighting movies. I'll give it that. Like
Yeah,
I'd read
I'm
like it was.
not.
Yeah.
I'm not viewing it as like a discount version of it. Is the reason why I'm not like that like frame of reference of being like, oh, this is a filet mignon and this is like a discount steak. Like I don't view it that way like at all. So that's the difference.
Yeah. I get it. I think that they should try harder and make. I'm just saying, like, instead of just like tossing something out there and going representation, like that's great, but like if you just kind of gave it a half-ass product and didn't like make something that's kind of unique and like special and like that really resonates, then I'm like, all right, then did you really try?
Yeah,
So
I thought that the forest scenes with Tony Leung and the woman who plays like the mom character, like I
yeah,
thought that those were really beautiful, and I thought that they were done really well and they were memorable to me. So it was like a moment when I was sitting in the theater and I was like, wow, like this is blowing me away right now. So I think that that's like the main difference in our viewings of it, I think.
It may also be helped somewhat from like seeing it in a movie theater. I don't know how, like Zach, if you saw it in a movie theater or not, but it is kind of like
watching on an iPhone.
Yeah, it is. I think it's one of those things where it could be helped a bit by that. I think that like on terms of it being a Marvel movie, it like, I think that it was like, I guess I'm kind of like in between on it, where I thought it was like pretty serviceable, and I actually kind of liked the first bits, like basically before they go to like the big fantasy zone. I thought that it was like pretty engaging, and a lot of the action was like uh, choreographed pretty well and was like legible in a way that a lot of the movies aren't, which I think is pretty cool. And but at the same time, it is kind of like you know, I think that because the front end is what it is, when the back end kind of turns into what it turns into, it kind of hurts it a little more than some other movies, than some of the like, big CGI fests or whatever that Marvel movies turn into. Um, when you have had like a bunch of like legible good choreography and stuff like that, when it devolves into that, it becomes a little bit. It's a
When it
little bit of a bummer.
devolves into like two dragons flying in the sky, and
Which
they're
I
like
thought looked
hitting the
cool,
dragon.
but it's just like it doesn't. After you have seen that the people who are working on the movie are capable of doing like person-to-person action choreography as well as they do in the front end, it becomes a little more of a bummer, I think. Like I don't really mind it so much. Like I am very much with Marvel movies of the opinion of like, it's kind of like, I don't know, sometimes it's nice to have a McChicken, like sometimes it's nice to get like to like stop in and get something like that. It's like comforting.
I mean, it gives you diarrhea, but you enjoy
all
it.
of the food metaphors that we're
Yeah.
using in this
Yeah, instead of
episode.
doing the steak to steak thing, I think it's better to just say like sometimes it is nice to just get some crap on your way home, and
sometimes I like a big old
Yeah.
McRib or a McNugget.
and sometimes it's made like, and it's hot, and you get the fries like right when they come out of the oven, and everything is, or the fryer, and everything is like, you're like, wow, that was an exceptional bag of crap,
What are you talking about?
But, like, yeah, I don't know.
I agree with what Zach is saying to a certain degree, but like I just want them to just give more money to Asian blockbusters, and I'm fine with that. Like I loved Crazy Rich Asians because I felt like, okay, this is like a giant this is a romantic comedy blockbuster with a huge budget, and it was like eye candy for me, and it wasn't necessarily like the most heartfelt or fulfilling watch ever, but it still like made me feel good and was nice to like have. It was nice for it to exist. Do I own the movie? No, I don't. Do I watch it all the time? No. But it's just still like nice to have. So
yeah, and if the stuff is coming anyway, which none of us are able to stop it.
we can't stop the Marvel machine.
Yeah, if it's, it is what it is, I guess. You kind of gotta like take it in that lens, I think.
Yeah. I also feel though that like at least on the representation angle, I think when it comes to like Asian representation in blockbusters, you're gonna see a lot more of that just because of how massive a market that China is, just like so it's not like, I think it's a little different than like representation of Black people in blockbusters or LGBTQ plus people. Like you're gonna see, because China is such a like it just leads, that's where they're targeting a lot of movies and stuff like that. So I don't see that being a problem. I'm just saying like this. I don't know if it could have been interesting if you gave it some vision. I just wanted a little bit more vision than just like having what's the short-term 12 dude direct it, Like come on. I'll give with Crazy Rich Asians, like John Chu will at least like, he's not always good, but he'll like make interesting visuals, like you think of that movie and like In the Heights. I don't totally love either of those movies, but they're super visually interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I agree with you, and I do think that it is a good point for representation not being enough. Like it still has to have something behind it, and I do agree with that. And a good example is Mulan, because Mulan was like a steaming pile of poo, and so I do agree with that.
Yeah. Well, Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and Tony Leung, who's super hot in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks good.
Again, like I wanted him to win, and then this Shang Chi guy is just like, well, it's my movie, and I'm like, yeah, but Tony Leung's there, and he's cool. It's on Disney Plus, so if you would like to see it there, let's go a whole other direction and talk about two art house movies. Let's talk about Agnes Varda first.
Hey, okay, so I went to the public library and I got one
Killer start.
sings, the other doesn't, or l'un chante, l'autre pas. I'm using my French from school, as you can see. But yeah, so it's directed by Agnes Varda from 1977. I have seen a couple of Varda movies. This one, Cleo from 5 to 7, and let me
Were
see.
you on our series?
I think maybe I was for Cleo from 5 to 7. I think I was on that episode. I really do want to watch more of her movies. She's a very interesting director because I feel like I know her personally. I watched that.
I met her.
I know, but like there's so much stuff. She was like not shy about who she was as a person. And she was also a documentarian. So there's lots of real life footage and real life things about her as an auteur and as like a human being, about the projects that she cared about.
Sure.
And like when we went to TIFF, like you and I like went to that screening of what was the movie about her life.
The Varda by Agnes.
Yes, and we saw that, and I like cried at the end of it. And this was like a person who I felt like I knew at the end of that movie. And so like getting to watch some of her other films is like something I've been wanting to do, but haven't felt like I had the time to do it. And so it was nice to watch this one because it is one of her like earlier fiction films. And it's pretty much about two women, and they're really good friends. They meet each other when they're really young, and one is like older than the other one. And one of them is kind of like down on her luck, and she has two children that she can't really feed, and she's with like a photographer boyfriend who is cheating on his wife with her. And she is friends with a 17-year-old girl who is like wanting to be a singer, and they become like good friends. But the one that has two kids already becomes pregnant, and she can't take care of this other child. And so the younger one lies to her parents and gets the money to give to her so that she can get an abortion. And they kind of bond over this like moment together, and it propels them into like they become like lifelong friends, but they end up losing touch. And one of them moves to the countryside and the other one kind of like stays in the city. And the movie is just like them writing letters back and forth to each other and staying in contact, sometimes meeting up and seeing each other, but they're both kind of like going through different phases of their lives at different times. And I really, really liked it. It was also like I grew up watching the movie Beaches. I don't know if you guys know what that movie is, with Bette Midler, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And it's like I remember it being like, oh, this is the female friendship movie. And I like realized, I was like, did Beaches rip off of this movie? Like whenever I was watching it, I was like, oh, did the movie Beaches rip off of this? They ripped off Agnes Varda, like for real? Because it was just like about like a movie that was like about female friendship and how like two women can change over time, but they still understand and love each other. And like this movie was super big on just like women's reproductive rights and the bonds that we have as women. It talked about like being pregnant and giving birth and what that experience is like. There's a song where she sings about how women are balloons, like, which is like so whimsical and very sweet. And this movie is like classified as a musical, but it really is just like whenever she goes on tour, she's just like singing all of these songs and doing these performances and is singing a lot about like the female body and being pregnant or like getting an abortion. And so it's weird because it doesn't really feel like a musical. It kind of just feels like the music is in it because of these performances. It doesn't feel like someone is like kind of, randomly singing at times. It feels like it's a part of her performance. So that was like kind of interesting. I really liked the music for the most part. But Cam has never seen an Agnes Varda movie. So this was his first ever. And so what did you think?
I thought it was okay. I was not as like big on it as
I'm not her friend. I mean,
Yeah.
we're
I
acquaintances, but
I
whatever.
don't really know Agnes Varda personally. Like,
I love her.
but yeah, I mean, I thought it was fine. I would like to see like other movies of hers, I guess, because I've never seen anything of hers.
I think you would like Cleo from 5 to 7. I think it's more palpable as like a first watch type of thing.
It is like the movie by like virtue of what it's doing. The one thing the other doesn't is like it is kind of like it does like kind of just stroll through these two women's lives, like just kind of like meanders around, and like sometimes things like feel very related to each other and sometimes they don't, and so and I mean that's the point. And if if you enjoy that, then you'll, I think, enjoy it. But I can also see how like people. I don't want to say that it was like off-putting to me or anything like that, but I guess I kind of like sometimes would feel myself sort of like drifting around in it as it was going or whatever because of that.
I can imagine you watching Celeste and Julie go boating.
It's on the list. It's on the list.
Yeah, it's because it's like what you're just describing, but for 3 hours.
Yeah, which I don't mind. Like I didn't dislike it about it at all or anything like that. And that's just kind of like what the movie's doing. I don't think it's like a fault or anything like that. It's just a different kind of like vibe or whatever. And also, like, I did not like the music, like, at all.
I love the music. It was sweet. They're like a balloon. Like, it was cute. It was so sweet. I liked the music a lot.
Yeah. Which I guess if you do like it, that would probably help your enjoyment a little. But it's not like, like so much of it that it would just shock you out of the movie if you don't like it or something. It's just kind of here and there. I don't know.
I love the whimsy of it. And that's why me and Agnes Varda are like best friends. That's all I'm saying. Like, I love the whimsy of it, and the like cover art for the Blu-ray is like rainbows, and the aesthetic of like the two women, like they just look so good and sweet, and they support each other. And it's funny because like this is obviously a very feminist film, but I think it's done well because it's not like poo-poo on men, right? Like there are obviously situations that the women get into because of men, but they don't end up blaming them, and like there's like a good balance of like I need to find myself and find things that are fulfilling for myself, but that doesn't mean I can't also have a partner who is a man by my side, which is awesome. Like I think that more like I wish that Edgar Wright would like watch this movie before he wrote Last Night in Soho or whatever, because this to me is what feels like, okay, this is feminism. Like this is like representation for women and equal rights and all that good stuff. And Agnes Varda got it. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I also really liked kind of like the central idea of the movie, which is that there is like two very different ways. And I think the movie would say there's tons of different ways. But like
yes.
the movie presents two very different ways to kind of live a like sort of like empowered life or whatever. And one of them is kind of a little more traditional and like you know, is interested in like child rearing and sending her kids to school and you know, getting invested in stuff like that. And the other one is like, I want to go live on the road and play tambourine and like sing about being a balloon and like drive around like a van or whatever. But the movie is like with its whole chest saying like these are both
okay.
Yeah, it's both like they're both like valid ways to do the thing or whatever.
Yes.
And I think that is a pretty beautiful sentiment. Even if it wasn't like my like favorite thing the entire time, I did like overall enjoy the experience, I guess.
My God, these women are singing about fucking balloons.
Talking about bubbles again.
Yeah, I'm and I haven't exposed him to a lot of like French New Wave movies because of the like I don't think that he's going to like them very much. So that's the reason why I've kind of like held off on being like, here's all the French movies I love.
I'm just thinking of Varda movie. You haven't seen Gleaners and I, have you?
No, I want to.
See, I feel like you'll really love that one.
Yes,
like that's like
the potato one.
Yeah, and it's like
where she
peak.
dresses as a potato.
It is, and it's like peak like Agnes Varda just being like a wholesome grandma, like just because like the whole movie is just her going around talking to people about stuff that they scavenge. It's great. Yeah, I think that one would be good. I'm trying to think of other ones. You probably have the best shot with Cleo. Like that one's good, like French New Wave, and it kind of gets I don't know. At least it seems like it kind of gets forgotten behind Truffaut and Godard and those folks. So
yeah, for sure.
And it's really good. It's like a nice like 90 minutes, but like like you're living in the 90 minutes. It's real time. So cool. Well, I think that movie is on Criterion Channel as well. If you don't have like the DVD, they have like this whole series right now about female friendships, singing about tulips and balloons and stuff. So.
All right, there you go.
And then let's talk about this week. This is it's 2 weeks removed. Let's talk about The Swimmer again.
Yeah, so Zach's like explanation of The Swimmer was so compelling that I was like, I need to watch this. And also, I feel like we're in like this weird time of media where it's like there's so many streaming options, but nothing to watch. Like I find myself just like scrolling sometimes through literally every single one of them, and I can't find a single thing to watch. And I'm like, how is this possible? Because there are so many options. So like whenever a friend just suggests a movie, you're kind of like, okay, I'm gonna find this movie and I'm excited about watching it. And I like Cam and I were not disappointed. Like it was very good. The explanation of Zach being like, this is a guy who is just he's just gonna swim in pools was correct. He really does want to do that.
That's what he does.
That's what he does. And the little twist in the movie is good and it's done really well. And it's kind of like, how is Ned supposed to live, laugh, love in these conditions? Am I right? Like, he's just not having a good time. It's like, he's in tiny shorts. He's in teeny tiny shorts and he has no shoes on. And he's trying to swim all the way home. It's crazy. What a journey.
What for you? What was it like as it like goes from he's just fucking swimming around to like we're just watching how much of a shitty individual this person is over the course of this movie, because it just gets like worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and then it ends and you're like and you have that fucking ending which is goddamn insane, and you're just like, oh my god, and then it just ends and you're like, oh my god, and it was one of those for me where you just kind of sit there for a while and you're just like, Oh, okay. But how did you all react to that?
I really liked how one of the things that I picked up about the movie was that like you like by virtue of like how he starts very far away from his house or the house he's going to anyway.
Mhm.
You're
It is his
around,
house.
yeah, you're around or he's surrounded by people who aren't like proximal to him all the time. So whenever everybody is very like chummy and stuff with him at the very beginning, it's like as the movie goes on, I start to realize like it's like, oh, those people like didn't know him very well. And so they're kind of just like happy to see him because he's like a distant neighbor who lives like really far away or, you know, several miles away. But as you kind of roll through the movie and he gets closer to his house, it's like everybody who is close to there knows who he is. And that's like the interactions that he has with people start getting like more and more hostile because everybody is like, this fucking guy, like, like showing up rather than like at the beginning, everyone is super happy to see him and like handing him drinks and telling him he's like, man, we miss you. You look great, blah, blah, blah. You know, and by the end, he's like showing up to parties uninvited and everybody's like, asshole. Like people are taking drinks away from him and like being like, you know, this guy like shouldn't like
throwing drinks in his face.
Yeah, throwing drinks at him.
And he's yelling, he's like, that's my hot dog cart.
But I thought that was really interesting that like as the movie progresses, it gets like closer and closer like to the end, but also geographically like closer and closer to the place where the guy lived most of his life or whatever. It's like things become more and more hostile and like unspooled or whatever. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, and I forgot about that the hot dog cart scene, which is like there's like this prolonged moment where he's yelling about that's my hot dog cart. And you're just like your hot dog cart? What are you talking about? But yeah, I mean, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but I think it helps having Burt Lancaster like as the like having that movie star persona like in that movie because there's just something so like you like there's something like you kind of want to root for him because it's Burt Lancaster, like he's the movie star, you're supposed to root for the movie star, and then like as the like it kind of plays with your expectations as the movie goes along, and at least for me like you kind of question like you have these other people who are going like this guy sucks and you're like why does Burt Lancaster suck? And then like it just like I think that the director Frank Perry does such a great job of like none of it is very explicit. It's kind of like the movie we're going to talk about in part 2. It's a very like subtle movie. A lot of like the deterioration and like of your like perception of him is just kind of happening if you're kind of clued into what's going on. But it's not like flashing in front of you going like this guy's an asshole. It's just like as you spend, you know, however like an hour, once you're stuck with him for an hour, you're like, God, this guy does suck.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of interesting, you know, like just it was such a smart way to kind of handle the story.
For sure.
But yeah, The Swimmer, it's on Criterion Channel. It's I don't know, go to the library or something.
Go to the library. We found it at the library. It was fun.
Swimmer.
Fun to go take a trip to the library.
Exciting times.
Cool.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break and then we'll be back in part 2 talking about Starship Troopers after this.
Come with me if you want to live forever.
That's not what he said.
If you want to live forever. Like, what does he say?
He says, come on, you apes, you want to live forever?
Come on, you apes.
Like,
You
let's
wanna...
all go die.
What is the live forever thing from? What's the movie that's like, if you want to live, come with me if you want to live forever?
Terminator.
Run, you fools. Yeah. Terminator is come with me if you want to live.
Oh, come with me if you want to live? Yeah. Where did I get the come with me if you want to live forever thing?
Come with me.
Is that Twilight?
If you want to live forever.
Is that from Twilight?
Maybe.
Come with me if you want to live forever. Part 1. Save. I'm saving it.
I'm saving part 1. I'm saving part 1. Oh, my darling, I'm saving part 1.
Wow.
Wow.
Boom, 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 boom.
Oh, man. This is killer video right now.
Oh.
Everybody online's just like, damn.
Is it still live?
Yeah, they're just like, damn, this is exciting. This is exciting stuff.
Exciting. Catching up on my
Little-
messages.
A little preview of the notes. My favorite note about this movie is that when they had the co-ed shower scene, the actors said that they would only do it if Paul Verhoeven also was nude, and he was like, "Yeah, whatever."
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yep, and he
Yeah.
did it. He
So
was
he-
like,
so-
fine.
Ew,
so he-
what does he look like even?
Like
I'm going to
shit.
Google it. Paul Verhoeven. Oh.
So he like directed the
He's
scene.
old.
He wasn't
Naked.
old
really
then,
old.
but yeah.
No, that was like what?
Oh, Paul Verhoeven. What year is this?
97.
1997.
Yeah,
Movie.
that is like that's funny. They should do that from now on, like with any nude scene. Be like, well, you do it.
Ew.
Oh, okay.
Ew. Yeah, well, he isn't. Never mind. He's like the Basic Instinct dude, right?
Mhm.
Where it was like that whole thing happened.
He did make that movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm looking like, I mean, he looked a little. Now, if you ask like Paul Verhoeven now to do it, then maybe a little bit, you know.
This child, who's this kid?
That's the one that's like, I'm doing my part.
Is that his son?
I don't know.
His little blonde son. All right, I saved this. I'm exiting. Save over closing. No. And then I'm opening this new one up. Sorry I made everybody sad for Grave of the Fireflies. Sorry.
No, I texted him, and Tyler was like, "Yeah, that was a good chat you guys had. I feel like I put Jessica through it though."
Yeah, I was.
I was
Yes.
like, "Yeah, well."
Cried for 3 hours. Still recovering.
Because he was like, because I was like, name a movie, and that's what he went. I was more like, it was more that I went, name a movie, and that's what you went to, you know?
Dang, man.
Yeah, he was just like, well, I just watched a couple weeks ago, and it made me depressed. I was like, so you were like, hey, let's let them do it too.
And then Cam was like, well, let's talk about bugs. Let's talk about bugs. I'm doing my part.
I am doing my part.
I'm
here.
doing my part.
I both paid and suggested this, and now I'm here. So
That's right. That's right.
You didn't even suggest it. I think we
Someone
went.
else
What if we did?
that knew that I would say yes.
I said,
right.
well, what if we did Starship Troopers and just got Cam to do it? And Jessica was like, he would do that, and I was like, well, there we
He
go.
loves it.
I love it. It's
Behind the scenes,
Love
that's
it.
how we decide stuff.
And now you're a good citizen.
Actually, if you want the real behind the scenes, we just have long chats naming movies. Like we name like 200 movies, and then we don't pick a series.
Yeah, that's true. He's right. Correct.
we don't pick any series. We just name. It's literally just like, hey, Jessica, Cars 2 and Secret of Nim, and just like start naming movies for like 2 hours, and the Slack's
and
going like this.
Comes of it, and then I mute my Slack channel, and I say, I say, tell me about notifications tomorrow. Let me live my life.
This is a nice. Let's just drag our other Cinematary people on the live feed.
They're not gonna watch this video anyway. It's fine.
That's true. All right, we'll talk about it. Let's do it.
All right, let's get into it.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And we're back with part 2 of episode 379 of Cinematary. In this part, we will be concluding, because we're done with our Patreon series after this, or at least for a little while. But we're going to talk about 1997 Starship Troopers. It's directed by Paul Verhoeven from a script by Edward Neumeier. The film stars Casper Van Dien, Denise Richards, Dina Meyer, Jake Busey, and Neil Patrick Harris. In the distant future, the Earth is at war with a race of giant alien insects. Little is known about the bugs except that they are intent on the eradication of all human life. But there was a time before the war. A mobile infantry travels to distant alien planets to take the war to the bugs. They are a ruthless enemy with only one mission: survival of their species, no matter what the cost. Scriptwriter Ed Neumeier had been a fan of the novel since his childhood. Paul Verhoeven, on the other hand, had never read the book and attempted to read it for the film, but it made him, quote, bored and depressed. So he read only a few chapters. Quote, I stopped after 2 chapters because it was so boring. It is really quite a bad book. Asked Ed Neumeier to tell me the story because I just couldn't read the thing. It's a very right-wing book. 2 nude scenes were kept in the original version: the co-ed shower and the bedroom scene with Rico and Dizzy, although these were modified in the broadcast version. The cast agreed to do the co-ed shower scene only if Verhoeven agreed to direct the scene naked, which he did. Verhoeven found it strange, quote, Americans get more upset about nudity than ultra-violence. I am constantly amazed about that. I mean, I haven't seen any sex scenes in American film that are anything other than completely boring. A bare breast is more difficult to get through the censors than a body riddled with bullets. Verhoeven stated in 1997 that the first scene of the film, an advertisement for the mobile infantry, was adapted shot for shot from a scene in Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will, specifically an outdoor rally for the Reich Labor Service. Other references to Nazism in the movie included the Wehrmacht-inspired uniforms and insignia of first grade or field grade officers. Military intelligence working uniforms reminiscent of Mussolini's black shirts, Albert Speer's style of architecture, and its propagandistic dialogue, such as "Violence is the supreme authority." In a 2014 interview, the actor Michael Ironside, who read the novel as a youth, said that he asked Verhoeven, who grew up in the German-occupied Netherlands, quote, why are you doing a right-wing fascist movie? Verhoeven replied, quote, if I tell the world that a right-wing fascist way of doing things doesn't work, no one will listen to me. So I'm going to make a perfect fascist world. Everyone is beautiful, everything is shiny, everything has big guns and fancy ships, but it's only good for killing fucking bugs. In 2000, the New York Times said, as written by Ed Neumeier, who also wrote Verhoeven's much tighter RoboCop, Starship Troopers never gets over its 180-degree swivel from teenage love story to murderous destruction. In 2001, the LA Times said, a jaw-dropping experience, so rigorously one-dimensional and free from even the pretense of intelligence, it's hard not to be astonished and even mesmerized by what is on the screen. In 2000, Roger Ebert said the action sequences are heavily laden with special effects, but curiously joyless. So on that note, we'll also mention that Andrew would like to add that Denise Richards is really hot in this movie. Let's talk a little bit about Starship Troopers. Cam, since you were the suggester of this movie, what do you like about Starship Troopers? Yeah.
So to like really fully get on or get along with the movie, you have to sort of like understand that it's like the movie itself is kind of the joke, right? Like Verhoeven hated the book and thought it was stupid and thought Hyland was a fascist. And Neumeier liked the book, but he like wanted to adapt it in the same way that Verhoeven did. And Verhoeven, you know, a lot of his stuff from the time was like really, really fascinated with the idea of like American fascism. Like what would that flavor of fascism look like? And that's what's kind of like portrayed in RoboCop and also in Total Recall. And you see it kind of like taken out hundreds of years into the future in Starship Troopers.
Mhm.
And what you are getting is essentially like a movie made by, like, this is like essentially like what a movie would look like made by this like super vapid, empty fascist, like global empire that exists at the time.
Mhm.
And I think if you can get on the level of that and kind of see it as like this is a like a faux propaganda movie for, you know, a brand of like American global fascism that is like extrapolated 400 years into the future or whatever, the movie becomes like really, really, really funny, like almost all the way through. There's like like very few scenes that aren't like kind of like riddled with jokes about what that is and kind of how stupid and empty it is, and how vapid everybody is and how like just totally like empty the society is outside of its like militarism or whatever.
Mhm.
And I think that like when you are like, I think that it's admirable that it got pushed through the studio system at the time.
Yeah.
And some of the conversations that were had about it when it was getting moved through are extremely funny. There's like this little thing about how when they were showing one of the early like screenings to some of the executives, they were like, so hey, your mobile infantry, like your heroes, their battle flag is a Nazi flag. What's up with that? Verhoeven was like, oh, it's not a Nazi flag, it's a different color. And like they kind of like did stuff like that to kind of keep moving things down as much as they could just to kind of get it out. And I think at the time it was sort of like, I think that a lot of people sort of got confused by it because like the joke, if you don't like latch onto that pretty quickly, then it's easy, I think, to get confused by it. You know, people got confused by RoboCop, and RoboCop is pretty like beat you over the head with what it's doing. But I don't know. I think that if you're paying attention to a lot of the iconography and stuff like that, it isn't like the most difficult thing in the world to kind of like glean it out. Which is only to say that like I don't think that Verhoeven is like pointing and laughing at people for not getting it, and I don't think that he is like I think that he is trying to move it along to where people do understand it or whatever. I don't think it's like trying to like point and laugh. But like after a certain point, like Neil Patrick Harris shows up in like a full on SS uniform, right? Like, like it's just like plainly has the Falcon on it, is the black trench coat, has the hat. Like, I don't know. I think that like there's plenty to pick it up, but I also don't think that it's like being annoying if you aren't going to pick it up. I think a lot of people who watched it just kind of like thought it was rad, you know. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, you think about the quote that he says, like, you know, you can't just kind of come out and be like fascism's bad because that's the people aren't going to respond to that. And so I think it's smart to kind of portray it in like this way, which you know, I think that this kind of gets into a lot of my issues with like portrayals of Nazism in pop culture, which is, you know, we make movies that or TV shows or just anything in pop culture that is like the badness is just like the you know the faceless Nazi figure like in the SS outfit. It's not necessarily like the philosophy or the, you know, kind of the what got them there economically or like any of the factors that really like created Nazism. It's all just like, no, it's just like this bad guy with a buzz haircut and blonde hair and in an SS outfit. And so I think that this movie's smart because like you said, like it does have like this emptiness to it. You think of like the first act of this that's just like all. It's literally like an episode of the OC with like,
Like
this will they won't.
90210, yeah.
Yeah, like this, like will they won't they? But it's just like it's just so goddamn empty, and like and like this was my first time watching it, and I'm just like, what the hell is like like
Yeah.
am I watching like an episode of Beverly Hills 90210? Because you do have like this, you just have this ultra ass preppy like foursome cast with like Denise Richards and people like that who are it just there's something so vapid and completely like there's just nothing there. It's just but this is the life that you're wanting to like follow is
Right.
these is like these, and I think he's like they're like a futuristic football star, but something
Yeah.
like that.
Where they play football just like on a basketball court, like
It's really
when they're
weird.
falling over. There's like falling straight onto this like hardwood or whatever. Also, a really great thing about the whole like 90210 ass like first half is that you get this like setup of like, here are all these teens who have never had a thought ever. Like, Casper Van Diem, especially Casper Van Diem and Denise Richards are so good at like playing these characters. I guess they're good at it. I don't know, but they are. I mean, both of them look so completely like they're bought in, And I think that part of the reason that Neil Patrick Harris is not like in it as much is because he kind of is like, you can tell he's kind of joking like with his performance. He's a little more like winking and nudging with the camera a little bit. And I think that like Verhoeven was smart to kind of center it on the other two, where Casper Van Diem playing like Johnny Rico. I mean, the dude is a just square-headed, like slack-jawed moron, like from like
he said head empty.
Yeah, like outside of time and space. Like this dude looks like he
looks like a Ken doll.
He does. Looks like
a Ken doll, and also they're supposed to be 18-year-olds, and they look like they're like 30-something years old. They look so old.
There was something that Jessica mentioned like while we were watching it, is like every time that, especially like when Rico would be on screen, which he's on screen a lot. I mean, he's like not a fantastic actor, but it works perfectly for it because he's just like he's just a dumbass. Like
he looks like handsome Squidward.
Well, but it's like that's who would be in this role. Like you don't want it. Like you're not gonna get somebody who's gonna like act their ass off with it. Like no, you need somebody who kind of
want it. Yeah,
you need somebody who's kind of
who's almost
kind of dumb,
like a soap opera character or something.
Yeah, like no, like
Denise Richards is very similar too. Like where she is just like, first of all, she's just basically grinning through like the first half of the movie, just like at all times. It's just like glassy eyed, just like out into the wander of just like, well, I'm gonna go fly spaceship.
I want to be a pilot.
I'm gonna have all these like stormtroopers in my ship, and they're gonna go land and kill all these bugs or whatever. It's just, they're both just so good at playing these like totally hollow-headed like dumbass characters that are like perfect as the center of this like movie about a kind of a culture that is also itself like completely hollow.
Yeah, so I have a weird experience with this movie specifically because I watched it a lot when I was like a child because my dad is like a big sci-fi movie guy, and whenever this movie was like on cable television, they just had to bleep out stuff and also just blur things and skip over like parts of it, and like my eyes just kept getting covered at all the which is a good point to Verhoeven's point. It's like all of the nudie stuff I wasn't allowed to see, but all of the bloody like gore and shooting was like fine for me to watch, but I couldn't watch any of the booby stuff or any of the like naked kissing stuff. I couldn't see any of that,
which is like kind of funny too, even in the movie, because you spend an hour watching all these like all these like basically models getting like mauled to death by these bugs, and then at the very end, whenever there is that like weird symbolic like penetrative thing going on with the brain bug. That's like the thing that
It's
gets
like
censored.
censored, yeah.
But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so obviously when I was watching this growing up, I was just like, this is like a very bloody and gory sci-fi movie, and I didn't really get the satire or like the point of it at all. And I will also say that I don't think my dad probably did either. Like, I don't think that my dad was like, wow. My dad, a military man, was like, wow, what an anti like military type of film. I don't think that he really understood that. And I also am thinking like maybe mainstream audience people probably didn't either. It was just like, wow, this is like entertaining. And also, but like I also knew that the tone was off and was like kind of weird whenever I watched it growing up. And this is my first viewing as an adult all the way through where I was like, oh, okay. And like everything like started to click for me, and how weird it was that I just have seen this movie like probably 8 times total. And finally, as an adult, it clicks into place, and I'm like, oh shit. Like that's insane that it like even got made in the first place. And I was starting to ask like myself questions while I was watching it, and it's kind of scary when you think about it, because I was like, okay, so this is supposed to be the American military, and in the punishment scene where he is getting like whipped in public, and it's like a basic training type of situation, I looked over at Cam and I was like, this isn't like the like what they do in the military, like in the American military, right? Like this isn't like what they would do in basic training or anything, right? It's like, right, this isn't what they would do, right? And I was just kind of having a meltdown where I was like, this isn't like our military, right? Like this isn't. And in the classes, like we talked about this with Grave of the Fireflies, they were like talking about Hiroshima like in their class, and them saying like, well, that was necessary. Like violence is always the answer, and there are things that you have to do that are necessary, and all of the characters are just parroting all of these things that they're hearing these other adults saying. And whenever Rico's like whatever captain, lieutenant, I don't know what they're called, colonel, whatever, whenever that guy dies and he is appointed his position, he starts parroting like literally the same spiel to the rest of the recruits. And so you're like, this is a brainwashing system, obviously. And there's like lots of things in this movie that Verhoeven does that is like very smart in the way that it's crafted and put together. And it's like all shot like a like propaganda piece, and it has lots of like comedy pieces in it. You'll notice that as the movie goes on and the camera pans to the recruits, they keep getting younger and younger. And you're like, every single time you're like, here's gonna be some like adults, and they just keep getting younger looking and younger looking, like to the point of at the end when Rico is like addressing a bunch of new recruits, they look like 12-year-old children.
It's very funny because there's like I think that one of the like subtext things going on in the movie is that like the mobile infantry and like the Earth Empire is kind of getting owned, like they're like losing, because you get stuff like that where you're seeing like, oh, the troopers are getting like younger and younger and younger. In the propaganda thing, they're like, they pan to a little kid that's like, I'm in the mobile, I'm doing my part, and then but also like I think that there's a pretty reasonable like thing that you can look at the movie and be like, all of the like psychic stuff is just bullshit. Like it's just not really like the only real quote unquote like application you see of it once is Neil Patrick Harris telling his ferret to do something and the ferret does it. But the other time you see it is like a David Blaine looking dude comes on screen with a third eye and is like, "You might be psychic. You better call and figure out just in case. We're deploying like psychic warriors on the field and all this type of stuff." And like it could just not be true. Like it could just be bullshit that they're just like saying to say that, oh, try to keep morale up or whatever.
Well, they're like experimenting on
Yeah.
people, probably.
And the end of the movie ends with it saying like, well, we captured a brain bug, which means we're going to learn their secrets soon. But it goes to the brain bug like, we're learning from the brain bug, and they're just like poking it with shit.
Yeah.
Like they're just like touching it with various things and being like, soon we'll know, I guess.
My favorite part of the basic training is when they keep like stabbing and like shooting people and they get like legitimately hurt and they just go medic.
Yeah, keep yelling.
And you're just like, why would you need a medic? And it's basic training. Why? And like he like throws the knife and just stabs the guy's hand. He's like medic, and you're like.
That guy gets like the top half of his head blown off and they yell for a medic like it's gonna do anything. Like, come and help this guy. I got the top half of his head blown off.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that should kind of signify what's going on, is that it's not like it's not like a Dunkirk or a Saving Private Ryan where it's like, oh, like we're getting beat down, but like there's the light at the end of the tunnel. You never at any point feel like, oh, they've really got a handle on this battle. Like you think of that scene like when they're at that outpost, and then just like it feels like every bug in the universe is like converging on that spot, and you're just like, oh, everybody's dead. Like they're all done.
It's very different from something like, if you watch like Lord of the Rings or something, when they fight the big, huge, evil armies, you're like, oh, but our heroes are very strong and capable. So like they'll probably come out okay. If you're watching Starship Troopers, every single character is just paper. It's getting shredded.
They're getting
constantly,
like could die. Like it's not like. It's not like there's like sacred characters, you think of like a Marvel fight, like nobody's gonna die in that, and then you think of like a Lord of the Rings, like somebody might die, but you'll kind of know that and it's not like Aragorn's not gonna die, but like this one, it's just like it just takes out people constantly, and again,
it's like a free for all, but it's also funny. Like everything is done very like cartoonishly, and you're like, there's like the dude and there's a video camera and he's like, hey, I'm here on the battle scene. And then he just like, the bug just grabs him and eats him. And the camera guy's, oh, I got to get all this action. And he's like turning. And then you're like, okay, the camera guy's safe, right? Because he's just like, look at everything. And then the thing gets the camera guy and you're like, and just splits him in half. Yeah. And you just see his body just laying there and you're just like, all right, well, this is what this movie's doing. So
and you have the whole thing where they're like at least in the back half of the movie where they're sucking their brains out. They're just like sticking the straw in the brains. You're just like,
oh my gosh. And just in terms of like visually how that looks and the effects that they use for that, where it's like an actual the eyes like rolling into the back of the head and it literally looks like the dude's head is getting sucked. It's insane. It's like very Cronenberg-y, like that part of it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like I definitely understand, because I have a kind of a, not the exact same, but I have like a similar thing where I watched the movie several times when I was really young, not because of my dad, but because I had a friend who really liked it. And he thought it was really, really rad and like wanted to watch all the time, and kind of had that same idea of like, this is just kind of like a super brutal Star Wars or something kind of like that, But, I remember watching it when I was like, as I got into like my early teens or something, and watching it with that guy and kind of being like, this is kind of weird, isn't it? Like there's something kind of going on here. Because I remember specifically finding a lot of the like carnage funny in a way that like I normally would not have. Even in a movie, like another movie I watched way too young, which was like Predator, right? Like in Predator, there's lots of pretty like graphic violence, but it's like intentionally shown as kind of like horrific, because you get to know the characters, and you know they're all doing their thing or whatever, and when they die, it's, you know, has that effect. But in Starship Troopers, there's nothing to know. They're just, it doesn't matter. Like they're all just stupid, and so it's like, I think that the movie is like, one of the things I think that it does so well with it is playing that completely straight and not feeling the need to make you like connect all that much to Rico or to,
No.
you know, or to Carmen or whatever. It gives you their backstory, but you kind of just feel like it could have just been any random, you know,
Well,
person
it's
from
it gives you like enough for the ad. Like you think of like the last like propaganda ad where it
Yes,
includes them in
exactly.
there. You know, it kind of gives you like enough for that. But I mean, that's no, they don't. Nobody gives a shit about like, you know,
Yeah.
who inside these people are.
Yeah.
Like no, like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
just
I don't think the
they're
movie
just
even like,
husks getting killed.
right, yeah, I don't even think it like assumes that they have an internal life. Like it's all
No.
been like sublimated outward into just like violence and like service of the state or whatever. And I think that that's what the movie is saying and doing quite well, is like taking this thing all the way to its logical extreme. Like Verhoeven said, all it's good for is fucking killing bugs or whatever. And at the end of the day, it's not even really that good at doing that. And like,
Yeah.
and like there's also questionable stuff about like whether or not the bugs are even sending the meteors that they're mad about. It's like they're just like, oh, the bugs sent the meteor. It's like, how? What do you mean? Yeah, like, and it's interesting too that like I've heard people talk about this movie as well, that like it's kind of interesting that this movie like predates the war on terror in America, because there's a lot of like similarity or whatever,
Yeah.
with regards to like chasing around things that maybe are not the exact target, and a lot of it is just kind of propped up to be some kind of like jingoist, you know, ultra patriotism or whatever. But I think that it's more like a product of like, if you are tapping into that like idea of what motivates what could turn into American fascism, I think that that is like, that's the route for it, right? So like I think that it's kind of like the natural kind of conclusion of following that stuff out through its through to its conclusion. But like, it is interesting that the movie got made before the Iraq War and stuff like that, and there's
Yeah.
certain like obvious parallels there. But yeah,
No shot to get made post 9/11.
no,
But
no way, no way. And I mean, honestly, no way. I think it gets made like any time after that. Yeah, like whether it's like directly in the aftermath or any time after. You know, I don't think anything like this gets snuck by the way that it, you know, that it got snuck by or whatever again. Especially something that is so explicitly like trying to turn the mirror around on America the way that Starship Troopers is trying to do. I don't know.
yeah, and I think it's interesting, you know, going back to the point of like, why did this not connect with people? I think, you know, I don't think people will admit like how much they kind of miss the signals with a lot of this stuff, just in terms of like just like modern media. Like I work in media. There's so many goddamn signals every day about just with like pro military propaganda, pro police propaganda. You know, I'm constantly kind of questioning a lot of stuff that we're doing, going like, well, this is just promoting this idea. It's not really promoting anything that's like actually constructive to the community. It's just kind of going, well, it's the police department or it's this, you know, and I'm like, yeah, but what the fuck are they doing? You
Right.
know?
Just like pure ideology.
Exactly. And I think that that's it, you know, it's not, it's easy to kind of be like, oh, well, it's just like the right wingers, like they're, you know, inundated in it, and but I'm like, yeah, I mean, they're doing their thing. Like, I don't know, like they're whatever. They're doing their thing. But it's also people, I'm like, who are kind of more, you know, see themselves as more progressive minded, going
Yeah,
like, this is like no, it's the you know, it's the military, it's the police, like this is stuff that we need to uphold. And I'm like, you know,
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think that's why this misses even more, because it's not like the right wing people were going to this and they were super clued into
Right.
the action and all that kind of stuff, and they were entertained. But I think it's also those people who kind of view themselves as intellectuals who, you would think would be kind of questioning this stuff, who also don't realize how all of this is ingrained in how they process pop culture.
Mhm.
And that's kind of it. It's just interesting to me how he handled it, because I think he handled it in a way that a lot of other movies don't.
Even that is kind of interesting too, because there is sort of like a bone thrown to that where you get that really extremely stupid like talking head thing where a guy's like, I find it frankly offensive that someone a bug can work or can think. And so there is kind of like this sort of like, you know, like gesture thrown towards that, like, you know, high-minded liberal like type of like, what would they be doing at the time? Well, they're, you know, same thing they're doing now. Like it's just kind of like talking about it on TV and not really like doing any kind of anything about it, you know.
Nancy Pelosi's voting for more money for the bug wars, you know. Any other thoughts or feelings about Starship Troopers? Anybody else have as strong of a attractive passion to Denise Richards as Andrew does? I mean, she's very pretty. There's a reason she was a Bond girl later. I meant to ask Andrew, if you're listening or watching this, like, you should. I would be curious to hear your thoughts on the Bond movie she's in, where she plays a rocket scientist.
I will say that out of all the people that die, I do think that Dizzy dying is the saddest. And also, like, I remember that scene specifically as a child watching it, because I was like, there's blood on her teeth. Why is there blood on her teeth? And she just got like skewered like through her chest, and her just being like, don't let me go, Rico. Just like dying is like really sad to me. And Cam was like laughing the entire time that she was dying, and I was like, this part is like actually sad to me, like actually sad. Out of all of them, I think hers was perhaps the saddest.
I've been on 2 Verhoeven episodes now for
I was I was about to say that you were also on.
I was and whenever I watch RoboCop, also I'm just like dying laughing the whole time.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of like the joy of the movies, right? Is like whenever you get it, and it kind of like starts to lock into place, watching the movie then becomes very funny. It becomes like a very kind of like fun, like funny little like thing that you can do. You also mentioned how like that you thought that like which I hadn't even really thought about until watching it this time, about how good you thought that Michael Ironside was, like the guy, his like teacher guy who goes and
he's good.
Yeah.
Which that's a whole interesting dynamic too, because you have the whole, like, he's the teacher, you know, spouting the ideology, spouting the nationalism, blah blah blah, and then he ends up being like the commander, you know, just kind of like that whole
very much the like evil version of like in Saving Private Ryan, isn't Tom Hanks a teacher? I think he's like a teacher that's in the army. So it's like, you know,
evil. It's the evil version.
Where he's like, just like, I mean, the guy's first line, which is like one of the first lines in the movie, is like, this year we learned about the failure of democracy and how how the social scientists almost drove Earth to the brink of destruction or whatever. And then, you know, later he shows up and he's like this heroic figure that everybody thinks is like, you don't talk bad about the lieutenant, you know?
Yeah, and then like a beetle just like
bites his
rips
legs
off. And he's like, we gotta kill me, Rico. It's like, good grief. And that's the thing, after you watch this movie multiple times, is like, when you watch the like idyllic, like corny beginning, you're like, these people are about to get slaughtered. Like, you're like, these people are about to just get obliterated right before your eyes. And you're just like, well, why are they fighting the bugs in the first place? ... Like, what the bugs do?
There's like this really interesting thing going on with like how like the aggression like inherent to a fascist society when like taken out to the global scale, like what do you do then? Because fascism like needs an other, like it has to. If you don't have that, then the system doesn't operate at all. I mean, it barely operates anyway. But like the concept of like othering is like so important to the central tenets of fascism that it's like they have to just think something up. And so they're like, there's some bugs over there. They're throwing meteors at us.
Yeah, they're like Buenos Aires just like is on fire. Who did it? And they're like the bugs.
They threw the meteors at us from across. I think it's so funny too. One of the other like really funny visual gags is early in the movie. It's like, the bugs over here on Clandathu, they present an immediate threat, and it shows the solar or like the galaxy, and it's like you really are here, away, and on the other side of the galaxy, like past the black hole and everything, it's like they're over here, which means they're close enough for it to be scary. So we need to go and kill literally all of them immediately.
Yeah,
it's very funny.
Well. And I don't know how I feel about Verhoeven in general. Like I think RoboCop is done well. I think this movie's done well. I don't know how I feel about him specifically with female leads and his care with like women characters specifically. So it's really going to be interesting to watch Vendetta because we're about to find out. We're about to find out, Verhoeven.
We're about to be on to you.
I see a lot of those criticisms, and I think that I definitely like feel where they're coming from. I think the reason that RoboCop and Starship Troopers work without getting too bogged down in that is because it's just kind of flatly uninterested. It's like,
well, all the people are equal.
It's like everyone
sucks.
Piece
yes,
of shit.
Everyone sucks.
It doesn't really matter all that much.
Yeah,
but
RoboCop is the same.
It's funny though because now I've been on 2 Verhoeven episodes and like hooting and hollering about how much I love both of the movies, but I've only ever seen 3 of his movies. I've only ever seen this, RoboCop, and Total Recall. That's it. I haven't seen anything else of his, so I can't like really attest to too much of his outside of that. But I do think the 3 movies of his that I have seen are all really good. But yeah,
I think he knows what he's doing. I just worry about his like what care he puts into like female leads specifically. But I guess we'll find out.
I guess we're gonna find out.
We'll find out. We're on to you.
New nun movie.
Horny nun movie. Let's go.
Yeah.
I do agree with his point about the whole nudity versus violence thing because like it was funny. It was funny how like there wasn't any violence in the French Dispatch, but my parents reacted very strongly to the like there was like these prolonged nude scenes of Léa Seydoux' character. They're just like, it's a little awkward. I'm just like, I mean, whatever. It's just boobs. Like
it's kind of weird too, or it's kind of another thing going on in Starship Troopers 2 in that like locker room scene where everybody's nude. It's interesting too because it's like everybody is super super hot, but they're not even like really super horny, even though they're like around that. Like in that exact instance, it is a co-ed shower.
Yeah, nobody ever hits on it. There's nobody like hitting on each. There's like the central romance of Carmen and Rico, but nobody else is like. Everybody else is like asexual.
Yeah.
Well, it's supposed to be like a utopia or whatever. Like it's like, oh, we're beyond that. We've gone beyond that. But also, nobody really loves or has feelings for anyone, and they're all cold and dead inside.
The like relationships that do occur. I mean, there's basically like the one between Carmen and the other pilot guy that actually do seem to kind of like genuinely care about each other.
His hair doesn't look attached.
But he has the big hair.
His hair doesn't look
so it's difficult there. But
his hair was like here. It wasn't attached to his scalp. It looked so weird. I don't know.
But aside from that, it's like Rico likes Carmen, Dizzy likes Rico, blah blah blah. There's like a chasing of something.
There wasn't any reciprocal "I love you" that was like
except
real.
for Big Hair and
Big Hair. Did they say I love? They didn't say I love you.
No,
to
but
each
they
other.
didn't
say
spent
it.
a lot of time together.
They didn't say it, and she watched his brain
She
get
did.
sucked out of his. That's probably why his hair was fake, because it was like a prosthetic.
I am
head
sad to report that I'm pretty sure his hair was not fake. I'm pretty sure his hair was real.
No.
I don't think that he wore prosthetic hair just for in the whole movie, just for that one scene at the very end.
He's somewhere going, damn it, they found out.
Guys, I've never seen someone's hair look so not attached to their scalp.
Well, Jessica dies because of the fake hair. Well, you can find Starship Troopers. It's available on various streaming services, and I think I've seen it on Netflix a couple times. Like it's popped up there and places like that. So, recommend on it.
It's great. It's fantastic. Just watch it.
Watch it with your family for Thanksgiving weekend.
That's right.
There you go. Perfect Thanksgiving movie.
Perfect. Bond with your family.
Well, that will wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at handle @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we post all the movies that we talked about in this episode. Thank you to our patrons, Cam, Chad Newsom, Christina Daughtry, Corey Willingham, Harry Eskin, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Tyler Chandler, and Whitney Rio Ross. Thank you so much for your patronage. Next week, we're going to be kicking off our next series, which I forgot like what how we do, like the name we came up with, but we're going to be doing biblical movies. Is it biblical movies related to just kind of running, like going in order through the Bible?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I forgot.
You butchered this, Michael. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a path to it. I forgot what the
I'm pretty sure that it is in order.
Yes, it is in order. So we're starting with Noah, the Darren Aronofsky film.
Old Testament, yeah.
Yeah, then we're going to the Prince of Egypt, then Gospel according to St. Matthew, Last Temptation of Christ, which we're going to have as our Christmas episode.
Nice.
And
Oh
we're going to end the series with a look at a satire of the Bible and look at Life of Brian. So I'm sure that'll be a wonderfully unsacrilegious episode where we won't talk about stuff that will get us in trouble. But really, in trouble by who?
Right.
But yeah, it should be a good one. I've actually never seen Last Temptation of Christ, so I'm super excited to watch that, especially for Christmas.
I don't think I've seen any of the movies.
Last Temptation of Christ is good. Prince of Egypt is pretty good too. I haven't seen Noah, but I kind of want to. There's it's like Noah.
Noah is a trip.
Giants in it.
Wait a second.
It's
this is the Noah that has like the CGI babies, right?
It's the one with Russell Crowe and Emma Watson.
I don't want to watch that movie.
Dude, it's a trip. No, it's a trip.
No.
It's a fun time. All right. Well, until next week when we get biblical, we'll see you then.
Bye.
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 Bye.